Good day. Let's talk about family therapy. Let's talk about what family therapy is, the theory behind it or theories behind it, and how it can help us in the processes that are to come in the future. My name is Janae Carey, and let's start. So right now I am pulling up a presentation. Okay, family systems. Now, family therapy is a collection of many different theorists, but some of the main ones are Alfred Adler. He was the first psychologist of the modern era to practice family therapy. He conducted therapy in public forum to educate parents in greater numbers. So he believed, okay, if one family has this situation, how many other families are having this same situation? And so he put it on a public platform so that multiple people can learn the different family therapeutic practices. Murray Bowen, he was a great contribution to family therapy. He was one of the original developers of mainstream therapy. Virginia Satir, she developed a model of communication and emotional experiencing. She advocated that techniques are secondary to the relationship, and that is very crucial in family therapy. That it's not just about the techniques, but it's about the relationship that the therapist has with these families. Salvador Mitchum, he developed structural family therapy in the 1960s, and he focused on structure of the family and aimed to help families redefine their relationships and how can these relationships decrease anxiety and decrease dysfunction. Jay Haley, he blended family therapy with the concept of hierarchy, power, and strategic interventions. And throughout this presentation, you will see how family hierarchy, power plays a role into the dynamics in the relationships. So there are many different theories and therapies that make up family therapy, and Adlerian is one of them. Multi-generational family therapy is one of them. Structural strategic family therapy is one of them, and contributions from Virginia Satir along with Carl Whitaker are major. And I'm not going to go through all of these because some of them you'll hear throughout the presentation, but I did want to mention a few of them. Adler believed that all behavior is purposeful. He saw that children often acted in patterns that were motivated by a desire to belong. And even if these patterns of behavior were mistaken or useless, it was definitely crucial and purposeful. Adler noticed that the birthing order was a key to development of children within the family structure. Bowen hospitalized entire families so that the family system could focus on therapy. And even though it's not practiced today, his contribution led to a lot of knowledge about the family structure, and how to reorganize the family structure and decrease some of those anxiety. Satir noticed that the dynamic of therapy shifted when family was present, and she found a profound breakthrough when all family members in therapy were present. And you'll see a connection to that further on when I mention something about being whole, the family as a whole. Also, symptoms are understood from the vantage point of the interactional patterns within the family, and that must change in order for the symptoms to decline. So whatever the presenting problem is, we have to look at all the vantage points from all the family members, and we must come to some type of way to decrease those symptoms. So what is a good definition? A good definition of family therapy is a theory of behavior that views the family as an emotional unit and use system thinking to describe complex interactions in this unit. So some of the key concepts. I found 8 concepts that I thought were crucial to talk about. First is societal emotional process. And this is the process of emotional anxiety at certain times. And although we have family symptoms, we are not affected. We are not just affected by our family, but also by our society and other outside influences. So, for example, 9/11 and war and racism and things of that caliber. The second thing was emotional cutoff. And this is something that you will see certain family members doing when they distance themselves from the family, and in turn, they have increased anxiety. Another key concept is differentiation of self. And this is when individuals are able to act and think for themselves. And someone who has a strong sense of self has the capacity to think and achieve goals individually, whereas someone who does not have a strong sense of self tends to act, think, and feel like other members of the family system. Now, our next one is nuclear family emotional process. And this is the conflict, the emotional distance over and under functioning of reciprocity. The next one is the family projection process. And this is the transmission of emotional problems from the parent to the child. Now, Bowen, he believed that parental anxiety management would encourage the child to change. I'm sorry. Bowen believed parental anxiety management will encourage the child to change their behavior than trying to apply pressure, anxiety, or the concept of let me fix the child. The next one are triangles, and triangles are relationship formations. And Bowen believed that three-chord relationship was more healthier because in a two-person relationship, the anxiety intent to increase because it didn't have that many places to go. The next one is the multi-generational transmission process. And this was the pattern of emotional processing through multiple generations and how these patterns are transmitted from generation to generation. So Bowen believed that the process develops through the function and the pattern of triangles. So, what my great grandmother and grandfather may have had in their family could trickle down to my grandmother and grandfather, which could trickle down to my father or mother, and could trickle down to us if we have not had if we had not stopped those emotional processes. The last one is sibling position. And that is where a child is born in relation to the other siblings in the family. And a child's position influences the roles and functions that they play along with the members in that family system. Now, here are some of the assumptions of family therapy. And one is that the family system is interconnected. The sum is greater than this part. And within this assumption, the family system is a societal system, and it has its own set of rules and its own set of communications and power and its power structure. Another one is understanding. Understanding is only possible if viewed from the whole. So this is another view from Miss Virginia, where it was impossible to get the whole story from one portion of the family or one member of the family, but you had to look at the whole family and its dynamics. Another assumption is that behavior affects environment and environment affects behavior. So some of the behaviors that are attributed through these family systems started within the family, and some of them were environmental. For example, maybe a school shooting. A school shooting is something that did not happen within the household, but it will now affect the household. And vice versa, if there's a divorce going on, one of the reactions to the children, something that affects that child in the household, that it can now be attributed to how that child acts within the classroom. Another exception is family members have specified roles. This can go to the mother and father and their relationship. It also attributes to the siblings and their roles, also known as birth order. The next assumption is the input and feedback guide behavior. And this is where you'll see some of those unwritten rules, like why can this sister get away with something that this sister can't get away with? Or why does every time we turn on the television, maybe only the father can control the remote? Or why does it seem like, the mother doesn't have as many freedoms as such the father may? Um, Another assumption is pathological communication causes relationship problems. So the assumption that what worked for my family, what worked for me growing up, must work for my present family, and how debunking some of those can change in a good way the trajectory of the family relationship. So, some of the goals in family therapy is to reduce the symptoms of dysfunction and developing new goals and boundaries for the family system. So, obviously, yelling is not working. What can we do to improve that? Not just for the person being yelled at, but for the whole family system in general. Another one is to lower anxiety so that family can interact more effectively. Um, the importance of this is so that family can communicate as a unit, as an entity, and to do that, not just to do that effectively. Another one is the patient should learn to resist unhealthy triangulation. So, the presenting patient who has come to therapy, how can they resist feeling the way that they feel? How can they create new patterns? How can they create a more concept of themselves, which refers back to one of the key concepts of differentiation to self. Some of the techniques that we use in family therapy is the genogram, and this is an assessment tool that identifies these intergenerational patterns. And something that you could see on this was if a family is divorced, or remarried, or the relationship between sibling to parent, sibling to sibling, and thereof. These genograms can sometimes be very complicated because they're big and they have so many different connections. Another one is process questions. And I personally really love process questions because these questions are designed to help the family look at existing behavior and how changes in behavior can decrease anxiety. So it's a tool that we use to get the family thinking and not just speaking and reacting, but getting them to process. And I love that. Another technique is enactments, and the therapist asks the family to reenact a conflict scenario that sometimes may happen in the home. And now the therapist has the opportunity to see how these family members interact with one another and can draw possible conclusions about the structure of the family. And then the therapist will confront some of these patterns that she or he is seeing, and we try to move to reconstruct a more beneficial way of functioning and more beneficial way of communicating. Um, Another one is reframing. And this is a case where a new interpretation of the presenting problem can be explored, which will allow the family to view this conflict from many different angles instead of just the presenting angle that they see. And our last one is detriangulation. And this is when the therapist uses themselves as the third party to de escalate tension among two people in the family and try to and getting those two family members to process that presenting problem. That is the end. That is the end. Let's go back here. How do I get back to me? That is the end of my presentation. Now, stay tuned because we have a lot more to talk about and we have a lot more scenarios to talk about. So, have a good day. No, we'll just cut that out. Perfect. Okay.